Zelensky strikes back hard behind Russia's back. With the temperatures in Ukraine dropping at a freezing -2 degrees Celsius, paired with about 40% of the country's energy supply being destroyed by the Russian army, the Ukrainian civilians are battling a war not just with the Russian president, but also between a deficit of food, water, and electricity. How longer is the war making everyone's question about humanity going to last? Are both the parties hoping for peace? Watch the video till the very end as we take you through a journey of the latest news about Zelensky's take on Russia-Ukraine war. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell icon so you never miss an update from us. Winter is here, and so is Ukraine's energy battle due to the Russian President Putin. Both the freezing colds and the missiles by the Russian army seem like a never-ending war against the innocent civilians who only beg for mercy. During a video conference with the G7 club of wealthy nations on Monday, Zelensky said that Ukraine needs about 2 billion cubic meters of additional gas to get through the winter. The Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has estimated that around 6,755 civilians have been killed and over 10,600 have been severely injured since the war began. In just a month, the deceiver of 67 civilians have been killed and 187 have been badly injured. Despite these numbers already being significantly high, the OHCHR emphasized that the real number is much higher, as the details of the death tolls often get delayed due to communication gaps in war zones. It was announced on the 13th of December by the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces that the Russian forces have been mercilessly and persistently attacking both the military and the civilian localities of the Lyman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Zaporizhzhia areas in eastern and central Ukraine. Trying to contain the actions of the Ukrainian forces, the enemy is shelling the positions of our troops and civilian objectives along the entire line of contact, while carrying out engineering work on its own defensive lines and positions, the general reported. It is no news that many of the popular cities of Ukraine remain paralyzed and destroyed by the striking mission of the Russian army. Some of the popular names on this list include the city of Bakhmut and the city of Avdiivka, which lies at the region's center. Some of the most fierce warfare in the regions of Donetsk have now made it unclear what regions lie under Russian control and what lies under Ukrainian control. The energy shortage has gotten so out of hand that the Ukrainian Messiah urged the G7 nations on Moto to deliver extra gas and weapons to help the nation get through this brutal winter, which millions of endangered civilians in the war-torn country are experiencing. In the fog of the local market, 62-year-old Oleg Klitschko said, "I am not afraid of winter, but I would like the strikes to stop. We will survive anything else." But what exactly is G7? G7 consists of influential nations like Britain, Canada, France, Germany, at which moment holds the club's presidency of Italy, Japan, and the United States. The leaders of the G7 agreement on key elements of a platform to coordinate financial support for Ukraine noted that German Chancellor Olaf Scholz before a summit in Paris on post-war reconstruction. Zelensky also suggested a special summit, which he named the Global Peace Formula Summit, to determine how and when we can implement the points of the Ukrainian peace formula, which would secure Ukraine's security and territory integrity. The president followed this by inviting the G7 industrialized nations as well as other powerful countries to show solidarity with Ukraine and fight back against Putin together. The president of Ukraine, Zelensky, had expressed his plan for a peaceful settlement to end the misery of both nations. However, Putin has different plans. The news on the 13th of December broke the internet when the Russian president completely banished the peace proposal from Zelensky, which also consisted of a pullout of Russian troops along the area from the capital of Kiev, having to accept new territorial realities, which included Russia's addition of 4 Ukrainian regions as its new subjects. Zelensky had also attended the International Aid Conference in Paris, where he informed his parties about the urgent requirements of emergency aid for the energy sector, amounting to about 800 million euros. The country is in dire need of transformers, equipment to repair damaged high-voltage power lines, as well as generators and turbines. Of course, it is a very high amount, but the cost is less than the cost of a potential blackout, Zelensky told the gathering in Paris via video link. I hope the decisions that will be made accordingly. Just one day prior to this, Zelensky had informed the group of G7, leading industrialized nations, that Russia needed to prove it was capable of denying aggression and begin withdrawing troops from Ukraine this Christmas. But Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov notified reporters that, without taking into account these realities, any progress is impossible. The host of the conference, French President Emmanuel Macron, confirmed that the French government stands with the people of Ukraine. He said in the conference was aimed at helping the Ukrainian people get through this winter. Very concretely, these are commitments to deliver generators, help repair infrastructure, deliver LEDs for lighting, and the French president added that the sole focus was focusing on Russia's attempts to cultivate fear among the civilians of Ukraine through the spineless bombings which have destroyed the country's infrastructure. The common consensus is the removal of heavy weapons from Ukraine's Zaporizhzhia, a nuclear power plant region where it's currently taken over by Russian authorities and is also the region where welfare relates are at its peak. We managed to protect Chernobyl, and our goal is to protect Zaporizhzhia. The coming weeks will be crucial, Macron said. Ukraine has received prolonged support from one of the biggest organizations in the world, including the International Atomic Energy Agency, who had agreed to ship out permanent teams to the country's nuclear plants, even in the regions of Zaporizhzhia. The missions are aimed at securing the plants and recording all attempts to externally influence them, in particular shelling by the Russian aggressor. Shamal said in a statement on social media following a meeting in Paris with Rafael Grossi, the head of the IAEA. Some of the world's biggest economic powers are also in solidarity with Ukraine and have pledged to send more military aid to the country to bolster Kiev's military capabilities. If there is one thing we can say with certainty, it is that the underdogs will not give up without putting across a tough fight. Zelensky has requested for more arms from the G7 to fight the war. This includes modern tanks, as well as rocket artillery and more long-range missiles. It is no news that the West has been anti-Putin, which in turn has helped Ukraine with much-needed weaponry from the West. A senior U.S. military official said that Russia is likely turning to older, less reliable artillery and rocket ammunition as the newer stocks run low. But Zelensky said Russia still has the advantage in artillery and missiles. This is a fact, he told the G7. The capabilities that of the occupying army are the ones to fuel the Kremlin's arrogance. Meanwhile, in the strategic Ukrainian port of Ochiev, officials are expecting the Black Sea naval base as it's hoped to serve and consolidate Kiev's gains in the southern Kherson region. After failing to seize the port, Russian troops smashed Ochiev from the nearby Kinburn Peninsula. However, the fight among the civilians for food and electricity seems to be the biggest concern for President Zelensky and the Ukrainian officials. The energy crisis has hit the nation hard as the Ukrainian Energy Ministry declared a statement that Russian missiles had hit all of the country's thermal power plants. This includes 44 overhead high-voltage power lines that had also been affected. Power company Yasno said supply limitations in Kiev were significant, with some 40% of supplies diverted to critical infrastructure. Oil and gas company DTEK said that its specialists were constantly looking for equipment to restore the energy infrastructure destroyed by Russia, and had agreements with the European suppliers ABB and Siemens. The terror against the power plants had forced the nation to use more gas than expected. President Volodymyr. But how much exactly have Russian military men taken over the Ukrainian nation? With the major target at the moment being Donetsk, the Russian army has steadily captivated over half the region. However, the journey hasn't been an easy one for the Russian men. Denis Pushilin, the leader of the Moscow-backed separatists in the region, had openly admitted that the Russians have had difficulty advancing in some areas. A little more than 50% of the territory of the Donetsk People Republic has been liberated, Pushilin told the Russian state-owned news agency RIA. Despite having no concrete evidence against these claims, it does seem unlikely that the army has already captured the majority of the locale. The war has affected the entire world in ways one cannot imagine. We hope both the countries and its populace are safe and sound, and that the leaders, they finally figure out a way to end this mindless battle soon. What are your thoughts about the Ukrainian war? Do let us know in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video.